You mean like do a show button? Like we're doing that? It's happening? Is that what I feel?
Oh, look at that. It's green screen.
Uh-oh.
Get the word!
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Bid Nerds. Your regularly scheduled program is here where we nerd out on the
What?
most interesting cars of the day on all the automotive enthusiast auction sites, including Bring a Trailer, PCAR Market, Rad for Sale, and Cars and Bids. My name is John Polnick. Coming to you. I'm back in Las Vegas, and my partner is still there out in San Francisco, where I was all last week. How you doing, Michael Deeb? Long time no see. It's only been like a few hours.
I know, right? 2 days apart. I mean, we were like roommates there for a while. I felt like I was in college, you know? One of us was couch surfing the whole week. And,
Yeah, man, I was sleeping in your basement. That was getting back to better times.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Dude, it was
the dog would say, wake up the gimp.
Well, I was in town for Radwood in the San Francisco area, and that was fantastic. We met with our friends Yuri and did some shooting with the Maserati. We finally got to drive the Maserati. I'm super
The
excited.
B Turbo lives. Yeah.
I'm super excited to show you guys some video and photos of that as we put that stuff together. And then we did the DWA rally, or part of the DWA rally.
Part of it, yeah.
The Sierra Rewind, and man, was that awesome.
Oh, dude, we must apologize to them because we kind of fizzled out early. But going down to Visalia and meeting up with like a pretty strong contingency of the DWA Radwood herd, the driving guys, fantastic group, JP. Surprisingly, there were a bit more modern. There were a few more modern cars than I think you and I were expecting, and we were in our very squishy, very soft, older 911s. So we were, really driving hard to keep up with the general pace of the group. But the roads down there, the accommodations, obviously the weather, the turnout, and even you could even comment that traffic was non-existent. They've got all these incredible roads in the southern Sierras around Porterville and Visalia, and we went up to an old mining town on Friday called Kernville, and we're up in the hills, and there's nobody on the road. If we tried to pull that off at this time of the year in Northern California, you'd have, I could say, roads that are probably of a similar caliber, but they'd be packed with tourists and people and trailers and whatnot and cops everywhere. And there we were in the Southern Sierras, and we were driving like madmen all over the place. There were cars everywhere, and we were largely left alone. And I think that was part of the magic. And then, of course, all the people were fantastic. We had also done the DWA podcast between Radwood and the Sierra Rewind Rally. So while we were on the event, our podcast dropped, and it felt like you and I were, mini celebrities for the week. Everybody was asking us questions like they knew us. And I'm like, who are you again? It was just Lane and Art and Warren made us feel like VIPs the whole time. We got to hang out with Paul Kramer, and we met a bunch of really cool people. I had a blast. Sorry we dipped out a little bit early, but already looking forward to the next one. That was awesome. Just got to either tighten up the suspension on Ruby or get a modern car, because the pace is there. I mean, if you're looking for a fast-paced rally, this is your group. You gotta meet these guys. It was a blast.
Yeah, it really was fantastic. The team at DWA, they go out, and unlike our show, they do research, right? They go out and they spend the time to find the roads, and they go out and they drive them ahead of time, and they come up with these amazing routes that are just like you got to be able to navigate. If you're in the car by yourself, it's not like some of these rallies where it's a bunch of cars and everyone just bunches up and it becomes a traffic jam cruising down the road. Everyone just kind of separates in little different groups, and you better be on your map game. Or you're going to be lost. Yeah.
Find people that are going to be at your pace, because otherwise you're, like, again, these guys all are drivers. And I think you and I cracked the code too. So here are these three guys that are living in Santa Cruz, and there we were in the hills east of Visalia. Warren's wife, I think Sarah is her name, who's a lovely woman, is from Visalia. So all those amazing roads that we were on, I think we have to thank Sarah for that, because
That's
otherwise,
probably all right, yeah.
why would we have ever been down there if it wasn't for her? So, the hell with the accolades for Warren, Lane, and Art. I think Sarah gets all the credit. So there you go. That's our take. Binders was there, and dude, we had a blast. Wish we stayed longer, but my car was overmatched, and before I threw it off a cliff, I decided to bring it home and preserve, live to fight another day. But anyway, good times.
That was fantastic. So good job, guys. Kudos to you fellas. Take a break. They had, back-to-back weekends with huge events. I'm sure they are taking a break.
They're all getting $5 massages in Chinatown this week. Watch.
All right. Well, this is your daily nerd out on the most interesting cars of the day on all the auction sites. So let's get to the cars. What we do on the show, if you haven't watched before, if this is your first time, you heard us on the DWA podcast, and you're like, who are these nerds? What are they all about? What we do is we sift through all the cars on all the auction sites. We narrow it down to the most interesting ones, and then we nerd out about those cars a little bit. And then when we're done, we make predictions as to what we think those cars will actually sell for when the hammer hits the sound block at the end of their respective auctions. That is the daily nerd out. That's what we mean when we say daily nerd out. We make predictions, and then we hold ourselves accountable. We actually start out the show by going over our previous predictions and showing you how wrong we always are. So don't take our advice. That's the only advice that you should listen to from us. All right, so the last time we did a show was Thursday because we took the long weekend for the DWA rally. What was the last cars that we did?
Thursday the 15th. Thursday the 15th, and let's start with the submission from Buddha. Mike Myers submitted to us the 2008 Porsche Panamera Turbo, and this was the Sport Turismo.
So a 2018, I believe, not a 2000.
Yeah, did I say that? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Forgive me.
No worries.
2018 Porsche Panamera Sport Turismo Turbo. Anyway, the nomenclature there is a mouthful, but the car is pretty tidy. Now, this was on Cars and Bids. So when Mike Myers, Buddha, aka Buddha, submitted the car to us, he had noted that we had done a couple Panameras, but never a Sport Turismo. We all agreed as Porsche guys that we would love to own this car. But we were also betting against the platform that maybe Cars and Bids was not the best place to bring this sort of, relatively young and unusual model from Porsche to market. And that bore out really well for Mike. So, Buddha said $100,000, and at that price, it would be a failure to sell on Cars and Bids. I went $102,000, thinking that this is still an unusual car, and that we know that used cars right now are enjoying, a bit of a high point in the marketplace. You were a bit more pragmatic, JP, and you said $95,000. So in a very weird way, you were correct, because at $95,500, the car sold. Much probably to the surprise of Buddha and myself. I didn't think 95 would bring this car home, but it did, and that's a lot of car for the money. JP, this was $180,000 MSRP. So the car is now 3 years old with 17,000 miles, and it's at 50% of its original value. Now, typically, 911s hold their value much better than all of the rest of the cars that Porsche makes, cars and trucks. So this is more in line with the sort of depreciation that we see with all the other luxury brands, but not typical with Porsche. But maybe the filter is that we're so used to seeing Porsches that are 911s hold their value so well. So were you surprised that 95,000 got this done and that it's sold at that number? Because I still think this is a lot of car for the money. I mean, 50 cents on the dollar to just take it with a year of warranty and 17,000 miles. Sign me up. If they find me one without that Cohiba interior, JP, I'd be a player.
Man, at that price, I think I would live with this horrible interior. That is
right?
Such an amazing car. And these guys left money on the table not being on BATA pre-car.
Thank you.
I mean,
Which is what Buddha was saying the whole time. Yeah.
I mean, Buddha is definitely, our people. He's been watching the show, and boy, that guy's probably better at this than we are at this point. He's learned all our lessons and applied them more skillfully than we are able to do. This interior is just absolutely hideous. That said, it's not so hideous that I wouldn't want to drive one of these. If I were looking for a sedan, this is the ultimate everyday car. I mean, this thing is just amazing.
At the speeds that this car is capable of traveling, you will spend very little time while you're behind the wheel looking at the interior. You will be peering out the windshield and trying to pick up signs way down the road, because this is like a 180-mile-an-hour wagon. I mean, this is a really fast car.
Yeah, I mean, the interior may be Cohiba, but the exterior will be plaid, because you'll be plaid speed the whole time.
Seriously.
Love this thing. The shooting brake, the Gran Turismo is the way this car should have been in the first place.
Oh, for sure.
And somebody got a deal. Cars and Bids is not the place to sell something like this. I am absolutely shocked that it sold for that price. That it actually sold, not failed to sell.
Buddha thinks. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think the person would have been done better throwing it on Auto Trader or something.
Well, PCAR market for sure, I think, would have got maybe.
Well, yeah, I'm saying, but that's my point is not that yes, there are definitely better auction platforms, but even better than the auction platforms would have been just regular old straight up classified ads. People are looking for this car, and you don't even need to go through the auction process if you want to get top dollar for something like this. And
JP, let me ask you a question. Let's just presume, because I forget where this car was, but let's presume this guy lives in North Florida, where there's no big major metropolis there. Like the closest might be Atlanta or Miami or something like that. If you live out of a major metropolitan area, do you list it in the nearest major metropolitan area? Like, in other words, if you're in Jacksonville, would you put this on Atlanta or Miami or New York or LA or San Francisco and go with one of the major areas to try and get this car? Because we oftentimes talk about Craigslist, but there are a few hacks to making that work for you, right?
Well, I mean, you're asking if you're going to sell your car on a classified ads, not a auction site.
Right. So if this guy lives off the beaten path, should he just post it like on the New York one or the LA one, where it'll get the most eyeball?
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, for something like this car, there's something in between auction sites and just straight up classifieds like Craigslist or Auto Trader. I like Auto Trader for the reason that people can search all over the country with Auto Trader, and a car like this is something that you do want a national audience, and someone looking for this will probably search. They'll go on something like Auto Trader and say, all right, find everyone there is in the country, because there's only going to be 4 of them, right? If that. So that's worth doing a national search. So something like Craigslist, that's not at all what I'm suggesting here.
Okay.
But, and there's also forums. There are things like Pelican Parts has a for sale forum. Renlist has a forum. That's really great for Porsches. 6 Speed Online is one of my favorite kind of secret squirrel forums for pre-owned Porsches, particularly air or water-cooled Porsches, because like Renlist and Pelican really leans toward the air-cooled stuff,
the older stuff.
Yeah, but 6 Speed Online is not a Porsche forum yet. It's mostly Porsche. So you'll go into their forums, you'll go into their classified ad section, you'll see a lot of water pumpers there. That's where you find, someone selling a water pumper GT3, like a 996 or a 997, before it hits one of the other places. And right now, those forums are hot. People are checking them constantly for cars because people are looking for stuff like this. There are a bunch of Facebook for sale groups. There's a handful of them. I'm not even going to name any of them. But frankly, I hate
another
them.
show.
Yeah, because something about the Facebook. You know what? Yeah, Porsche 911 buy and sell. I'm gonna reach out. I'm gonna shout out to that Facebook group and say everyone in that group is a bunch of MFs, man. I wish I wish we swore on this show, because I would call out 95% of the people on that effing Facebook page are the biggest cock essers in the world. I mean, someone will post their car, and immediately you'll have 30 people going, "Oh, that's too much," and they're all people that clearly have not been paying attention. They're all people that are stuck in 6-month or a year ago prices. They have no clue what's going on, and they all comment. I mean, that's what in the forums like Renlist and Pelican. There are no comments in the for sale forums. Like, you can't go on there and go, oh, this car is a different
hate
car.
on a car.
Yeah, you can't hate it. You can comment like, oh, I'm interested, or please DM me, or you can ask questions. But anyone that tries to do any kind of like their opinion, they're out. That'll get you kicked off the board, which is great. And the Facebook pages, the Facebook for sale pages, do not moderate well, and they just turn into an S show. So forget those places.
All right.
Yeah, sorry, got me off on a tangent there.
Already forgotten. All right, let's jump up and look at this 1986 Porsche 911 Cabriolet. This was a Euro Cabriolet. JP, do you remember this car?
Yeah.
Let's take a look. Can you pull it up so we can see it? This is on BAT. Yeah, no, I know, but I need to see it too. Yeah, so this is the M491 that came out of the Netherlands. Really neat car because it has like the boxed rockers and the cheese graters on the back. Those are pieces we typically only ever saw on M505 cars, but this is a turbo look Cabernet, but it's a normally aspirated car. Had a very unusual interior because it was sort of that granite green and it had the Porsche Sport Cloth. These are just options or a way to build a car that wasn't either typical or possible in the US. So with that being said, we wondered where this car would land because it was super low miles, very nice condition. And if this were just a regular US car, I think this car would have been pushing $100,000. But somehow these really neat and unusual features made the car look a little polarizing, and it just didn't seem to be getting the love even on BAT. So I went with a conservative bid at $75,000. You were much higher up on the car and said 85. Our car sold for just $78,000, and I got the win. You surprised by that result, JP?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a cab. So, and I do like your Freudian slip there where you were calling it a Cabernet. And really, everyone, let's get this right. It's a Pinot.
Yeah.
So now this car with the convertible top and, like you said, all the that really 80s stuff on the side. I love that look. I love the look of this car. At this price, that's still pretty darn high for a cabrio in this era of 90. Yeah, but the fact that it's a real wide body, the thing that we never really dug into was whether or not those options were factoring. If those options are factoring the box rockers and the cheese graters, then that is a pretty darn good price. But once again, any car like this 6 months ago was a $50,000 car. So.
Right.
I think the interior,
extra $28,000 for your trouble. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, this interior color is kind of weird, but I'm digging this car overall. I think this would be a fantastic driver, and cabrios are always the best value in 911. You're going to get more for less when you don't have a roof, and I think I'm still a big, huge cabrio fan.
Yeah, nice car. Very nice car. We also looked on BAT at a 1985 Mercedes-Benz 190E 2.3 16 valve with a bunch of miles on it. I think it was like 400,000 kilometers, which equated to just over 250,000 miles. So this is the Cosworth. It was a dogleg manual transmission. It looked to be very clean. And we've seen these cars start to come up off the stops, but geez, JP, 250,000 miles. I said 25, you said 24. The car sold for nearly $22,000. So the fact that this car brought, I think more than 11 grand shows you how hot the market is in general. 21,750 sold for that price. I've got one that I'm probably just going to bring to market because by this rationale, my car should bring over 50 grand. My car is practically mint compared to this, almost all used up version of the car. What do you think of that? Or what do you think of the market? For
sure. I mean, you drove your car. You didn't take that on the DWA Sierra rally, but you drove it the weekend before. After Radwood on Sunday, we took a rip through the Skyline.
Brandon's little rally. There was like a dozen cool cars up on Skyline down.
Yeah, and you were just mobbing around corners. I mean, I think that car is fantastic. I think this car is cooler. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think this is a cooler car than a BMW E30 M3. Performance-wise, is it better? I don't know. But with a few performance mods, you can really make this something else. And this one being all worn out, and not only did it have high miles, but the interior showed its wear. Even though it's in good condition for the year and the miles, I mean, there's no cracks in the dash, and everything was pretty much held together. It was still looking pretty tired. The clear coat was fading and failing on the exterior. At $22,000, that's a lot of car, but you're gonna you're gonna be chasing this car to keep up with the maintenance at this point, and you're probably gonna be needing an engine rebuild or something. So at that point, boy, how much money are you gonna put into this?
Yeah, that car can get really expensive really fast.
Yeah, but God, I just love those seat bolsters in the back seats. If you're listening to us, you got to go look at the link in the description of this video or podcast at the bottom. We have links to all the.
Hold that photo for 1 second, JP. Go ahead.
Yeah. If you look at the pictures in the back seats of these cars, you'll see that the back seats have big old waist bolsters, so you don't slide around in the back seat. So there's no sitting in the middle on this one. What were you going to say, Deep?
So JP, see that photo there? You see the two headrests in the back. Go back one photo. Those headrests are up. They manually pop up, and that and the 500E, there's a button on the dashboard, and you press the button, and the headrests release, and they fall down, and they're out of the driver's view, so you can see out the rear window. It's silly stuff, but how many times have I done it in the car where I like click and they go doom 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 doom? You hear them just sort of thud in the back,
just fall back. Yeah, I love it.
The Germans over Ingenia everything. But anyway, it's brilliant. That's a little first aid kit there in the back window too. Yeah. So anyway, neat car. All the bits are there. Decent price. I mean, that's a shocking. The fact that it brought $20,000 for a 250,000 mile example is bonkers. So I think I need to bring my car to market, which put a huge smile on Esther's face. And if I get enough money for it, JP, maybe I'll keep Ruby. So anyways, we'll fight. We'll fight it out yet to come. Also on BAT, we looked at a 1978 International Harvester Scout with the biggest of the three motor options. It wasn't automatic, but it looks like somebody went to great lengths to bring this car back. The bodywork was done, the paint was done, the interior is done. They even repainted the wheels and put some cool off-road tires on it. We've seen K5 Blazers. We've seen certain Broncos bring collector money. And so it was neat to pick this car like a week ago and then wait to see what would happen at the close of auction. So at the close of auction, it was looking pretty strong. And so I think it was at like 50 grand, JP. I said 65. You were a tiny bit more pragmatic and said $59,000. Our car shocked both of us and proved that we don't know that much about all the cars. $72,000 sold. Kabang, hit the sound block. That is a pretty big number for an international. I wouldn't be surprised if that was a Chevy or Ford, but a 72 grand for an international, isn't that kind of bonkers?
Yeah, I mean, we had a comment on that video from a fella named Craig, one of our followers or subscribers, said Scouts restored from are going over $100,000 and higher.
Wow,
so, that
so
kind of
that's
surprised
a deal.
me. I haven't been paying attention to these. A friend of mine just bought one out of Texas, and the thing is, they're all over the place from price. I mean, you see these for $5,000 in some place, and they're just complete rust buckets. And then you talk about six-figure ones. So the price of this one, I mean, this certainly seems like one of the nicest ones I've ever seen. So at that price, okay, I guess that's a decent deal. And now I want one. But my buddy just bought one out of Texas, and he was heading down there to get. I'm like, "Are you getting a PPI?" He's like, "Oh, what's that?" I'm like, "Oh God, you can get in so much trouble if you don't know what you're doing looking at these cars." And people see, $15,000 and here's one for $100,000. I'm getting a steal. It's like, have you ever had a classic car before?
Yeah.
You're like, well, I've got a new Toyota. It's like, that's going to work out for you. Good luck with that.
Not that easy, but this one, I agree with you, JP. I think this might be the nicest one I've seen, especially since we've been doing the show and like scouring like the want ads. Very few internationals come across the block, and none as nice as this one. So congratulations to everybody involved. That was fun to watch.
One last thing to say about that, though, too, is great photography. Really good, just general all around. I mean, this isn't like fantastic photography. It wasn't like a photographer did this. It's just well done. It's just basic. It's just simple. All the information's there. You wouldn't make a wallpaper out of any of these photos, but the photos really showed you everything you needed to see, and showed it in kind of a romantic way. They've got it out in a farm field somewhere, and that's pretty cool.
I thought that was the set of Dances with Wolves.
Yeah, with the driveways and the in the streets. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. Maybe more of if you build it, they will come.
Absolutely, yeah. Field of dreams. All right, last car was laughable. It was PCAR Market had the 2014 Ford Mustang Shelby GT 500, and I think when we were looking at it, it was at like $14,000 or $16,000, and we wondered if this sort of limited production Shelby that had super low miles would find a buyer on PCAR Market who's been just crushing it with, obviously Porsches and some Ferraris and some Mercedes and a few other unusual exotic cars. Would the PCAR crowd or audience or subscribers, take to this unusual Mustang with 600 horsepower? And we were just, we were in such a hurry to get on the drive. I said 29,000, you said 25, and let's go. While we were on the road, JP, this car found a home. Oh no, it didn't find a home. It was bid up to $51,750 and failed to sell at that number and remains in the deal tank at basically 60 grand. It's in the deal tank for 59,900. So basically it went to 52, which is almost twice what we had bid. And then missed it by like 8 grand, which is just freaking hilarious. So PCAR Market is kind of crushing it because I think, first of all, I think this consignor should have taken the $52,000. And so PCAR found that much money. I'd say they succeeded. The consignor is the one that has a problem. He needs to make a deal if he wants to get off of this car. But that's just remarkable. I mean, if you can bring a crazy Mustang Shelby, and we were joking on the show that we hoped it wouldn't sell because we don't want to see a bunch of more Mustangs litter the pages of PCAR Market, where we enjoy looking at a variety of cars that are within our sort of European flavor with the Porsches and the Ferraris and the Lambos and all that. If
you feed the pigeons, they will shit on your house.
Thank you.
Don't do it, PCAR Market. Just I know, look, Jim, please, God, don't make us sift through Mustangs, and then it's going to get worse. It's going to metastasize. You're going to get Camaros and Chargers and Hellcats and everything, and your site at that point will be just like nobody. I won't be. I can't deal with it. Don't do it. Don't do it, guys.
Just as a quick update, I just clicked the link. That car is still at $51,750, which means it did not sell. So let's just remind the entire audience out there that PCAR Market could not sell this Mustang.
Thank God. And good, I mean, the problems you're asking for if you let that in your house, oh my gosh. All right, time to hit the subscribe, like, and notification button. My partner over there is smashing that notification button because subscribing is one thing. Hitting the like, that's great. We appreciate it. But what we really needed to do is hit the notifications button after you've subscribed, because that way you'll know when the freshest nerds are available. We do this show live at around 9 o'clock every morning. And if you don't have the notification button clicked, you're not going to know about it. You can come and visit the page and the video won't be there. The fresh video, the fresh nerds will not be visible to you unless you have the notifications button clicked. It's terribly annoying. We don't control YouTube. It's crazy, right? I mean, who knew? Some little site with no viewers. Look, we love the Nerd Herd. We are proud of the Nerd Nation. It's growing and it's growing fast, and we want you guys to be part of this thing. It's just so much fun having you guys watch us every day and contribute and give us comments and let us know that we suck. And that's just fun. We want to know that.
We want to hear it.
Yeah, what we're really hoping for you to do, if you're out there, if you're in the Nerd Herd, if you're part of the Nerd Nation, please go to the individual listings of the cars that we talk about today. Yeah. Go to the comment section below those cars and say that you heard about the car on Bid Nerd. So if we talk about a car on Bring a Trailer, go over to Bring a Trailer in the comments below. Say, hey, I saw this car on Bid Nerds. It was awesome. Or these idiots on Bid Nerds don't know anything about this car or whatever. Yeah, it's great. So go to PCAR Market, go to Rad for Sale, go to Cars and Bids, and say you heard about the cars on Bid Nerds, and that would be really, really helpful for us. Okay, so let's get to today's cars, and let's do it.
Let's finish up the week, JP. So the score was 9-11. I won 9 and you won 11. We had no Yahtzees and we had no draws. So pretty close, but you won the week. So congratulations. And then Buddha with the submission. Thanks, Buddha, for reaching out. It's great to play along. All right. So what's our star card today, JP? Did you Did you think one rose above all the others?
Whenever you have a C4S in the 996 variety, you pretty much have to start with that. I mean, look at this thing. It's the car that everybody's talking about at the moment.
So I'm going to tell the audience the reason why JP likes this C4S is because it's basalt black metallic. That is Porsche's earlier generation metallic black. And having seen several cars painted in this colorway, I will tell you in person, in the sunlight, this paint job is savage. I also like this car, this 2003 996 C4S, because it has the techno wheels, which is really unusual. It was an option you could choose if you were ordering the car. And when you kind of sit back and look at it, the fact that it doesn't have the 18-inch turbo twist wheels, but it has the techno wheels. I used to hate these. I thought they looked really ugly, but they're kind of growing on me, JP. I like them maybe just because they're different. And they're easier on the eyes, where I was so judgmental when this car was new, 20 years ago. So here's a beautiful example brought to us by PCAR Market out of Nassau County, New York, with 71,000 miles. At 57,000 miles a few years ago, this car was brought in for service, where they did an IMS bearing upgrade. They also put a new clutch and a new flywheel in because they had dropped the whole transmission and did all that service at once. They did brake pads and a battery and rotors all within the last year. So I would say that many of the service things that you would consider as you're rolling towards 100,000 miles have already been addressed. So perhaps there's a pretty good amount of value there. That being said, with 2 hours to go, our car is sitting at just $23,000 on a lowly 9 bids. So, JP, what's holding this one back? Is it because it doesn't have the sport shifter and the sport exhaust and the fancy sport seats? Or is it because of the high miles? Or is it because the interior of this car, which we haven't brought up, is this sort of sand dollar light gray, and it's the whole interior? So the dashboard, the steering wheel, the carpets, the door cars, they're all this sort of ugly gray interior. Are we thinking that the Porsche market is still finicky enough that they would not bring top dollar because this car has an ugly interior?
On the 996, absolutely, the interior color is going to hurt this car. These cars, the 996 interior is look, people talk about the interior all the time, saying it's one of the ugliest interiors that Porsche has ever made. And in this color, I can't disagree. But in black, a lot of these odd kind of 90s sensibility lines kind of fade away, and the car winds up looking pretty good when the interior looks pretty nice when it's all black. That steering wheel is fantastic. The most common mod in 993.
What's that from? Yeah.
What's that? The 996 three-spoke steering wheel? What do you mean?
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, so it is a 996 wheel.
Yeah, that's the standard 996 wheel, and people love to take those and put them in 993s because they're swap. You just take them right off.
That's what it is. So it goes from the 996 to the 993, and you have that wheel on your new 993 C4. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes, and so so that's a terribly common thing. The ergonomics of the interior on a 996 are great. There's the little armrest things and stuff like that. But yeah, it's really hard to look at. These turbo techno wheels are really cool. I've never seen someone put a 4S badge on the corner, the front quarter panel. Yeah. And at first I was like, that's lame as hell. But the more I look at it, it's like, I don't really mind it. It kind of looks like, I don't know, whatever. It's something that I think I could live with, and I might not even pull that off if I own this car. But change the little corner lights, go to the clear
to
corners.
Clears.
Yeah. Why you would do this. I just wanted to mention something you mentioned earlier. It's not really relevant to this car, but the techno wheels. Yes, I'm a fan of the techno wheels. The actual 996 4S and turbos never came with turbo twists. Technically, those are called turbo thrusts. Turbo twists were on the regular cars. The thrusts had a harder edge to them and looked distinctly different. And,
so the twist is during foreplay and the thrust is during the main
There
course.
You go. Yeah, they're getting after it.
You are getting after it. Yeah.
How many miles does this car have on it?
71,000 miles.
That's so
out
funny.
of Nassau
You always
County, New
fall
York.
back into your dealership mode there and say that's high miles. And in Porsche speak, that is kind of high miles. But honestly, this car is better. I would rather have this car with its maintenance, the recent IMS and the clutch and all that stuff, than I would a 30,000 mile one. And you can ask some of our friends of Bid Nerds how 30,000 mile C4Ss have fared for them. Unfortunately, it's hard to bring up, but it is a true fact that 996s have that problem.
Buddha, who agrees with you.
I wasn't going to say his name.
No, but Buddha, who agrees with you, and agrees with you on saying that this C4S has the nicest ass of any car ever made, particularly Porsches, is probably got IMS bearings on his mantle, which is sad to say because he's had to go through 2 of them already. Yeah. And I don't want to say in counting. Hopefully the one that's in his car right now is the last one. But the fact that he's got one on his mantle, you never want to see that happen. These cars can be problematic, but they've also been bringing a lot of money lately. And the reason why I said 71,000 is high, I mean that not in the general sense of a used car from 2003, but we have seen a bunch of these come to market, JP, in the last, let's say, 3 or 4 months. And a lot of them have had 30, 40, 50, 60,000 miles. So this one at 71,000 miles is just one of the higher mileage ones that we've covered in the last 4 months, while these cars are now breaking $45,000 and $50,000 regularly. This one being higher mile and an ugly interior. I'm just setting it up to suggest that I don't think this car is going to do as well as the others because the other ones were just, more desirable with less miles and a color and better color interior.
Sure. Where's this one going to land?
All right, JP, I'm going to give you my number, and I wrote down a very lowly $36,000. Again, it was at $19,000 on 5 bids last night. PCAR market could have a strong flurry, but it's up to $23,500 now with 2 hours to go. So 36 means I'm thinking another 13 grand in the tank, or at least on the marketplace. Where are you at? You going to come in higher than that?
Now, I had my number set at 35, and I'm going to stick with that. The miles on this car, the interior being hideous, and the fact that this thing is out of New York. It's not that we hate all cars from the East Coast, but I mean, New York,
it's a rougher life.
The East Coast is way harder on vehicles, and we didn't really. The underside looked like it was fine. It didn't look like this car was spent a lot of time in the weather or anything like that. But just, I mean, the roads on the East Coast are so harsh. A car like this will get that beautiful sweet ass will get kicked on those roads. It's hard. And you can see by the condition of the interior, that light gray interior shows wear horribly. I mean, the center console, we show the pictures of that. It's just all dinged up. And what that means is the rest of the car has been treated probably the same way. And with with some of the darker colors, you don't see some of that as obviously in the pictures.
To your point, JP, the floor mats are starting to turn sort of that granite green, and they don't match the carpets around them, and they would have when they were new. So I agree with you that this color doesn't hold up as well as a black would. That being said, I also wouldn't be surprised that this car just touched 40,000. I think the metallic black, the techno wheels, and all the money spent on service could build more value there than we're giving it credit for. So it'll be interesting to watch and see. We'll see how it goes. And man, I tell you, when I look at one of these things, JP, I just think, God, wouldn't that car just do everything? How about just go find yourself a C4S and shut the F up, The
car you want for something like the DWA Sierra Rewind is this car. I mean, this thing would have eaten up all those roads and just been happy to do it. You wouldn't have PDK overheating that apparently someone was experiencing on that trip.
Really?
You wouldn't. I mean, it's like these are just... other than the huge problems that they have, the IMS and the bore scoring thing, as long as those two things aren't an issue, everything. I mean, these cars just have the right amount of power, the right handling. They feel great. The AC will work no problem. The
temperatures for the rally, the temperatures were hovering around 100 degrees, and we were going from the foothills up to the mountain peaks and down, and we did it several times. So I would say that maybe some of those PDK cars were under heat and under load, and that's a bummer. So
spend $200 on a set of floor mats, dude. If you're going to try to sell your car on a national forum, I mean, those floor mats really, really are disgusting. I mean, they're just freaking
they don't look
gross.
right.
But and the problem is that they show you what it's like to be on the East Coast. I mean, if you're driving this car, you're walking through grime, you're walking through muck all the time. There's salt on everything. I mean, it's just like, dude, it would have freshened up the interior so much to have changed out those floor mats. I mean, it just would have made a huge, huge difference. And then maybe even spend like the $400 or $500 on a new center console, because that's really showing some horrible wear.
It's the East Coast, JP. Should he just have breaded and fried those floor mats and put them back in the car, and then they'd look tastier?
All right, let's move on. Let's get to some other cars today. We got a lot of cars still to go.
Let's do the Alfa. Look at this. All right, the rest of the cars are all on BAT, so check it out. Let's start out with this 1989 Alfa Romeo Spider Quadrifoglio. Has just 43,000 miles, again from the East Coast, JP. This car is offered to us out of Greenwich, Connecticut. Low miles. No reserve on this one. I kind of like this car. The Quadrifoglio gives it this body kit, JP. If you can, stop there. Look at those rockers, the front air dam, and that rear lip spoiler. And then these 15-inch, sort of evocative of like the phone dial wheels. This is all part of the Quadrifoglio package. Unfortunately, during this era, Quadrifoglio did not mean more performance. This was just a cosmetic package. But that being said, this is the prettiest sort of version of the car that was available in the late 80s before the final refresh, and Alfa is bowing out of the U.S. market in the early 90s. This car is really neat, JP, because of the black paint, the gray leather seats, and the red carpets. This car is decidedly tacky and Italian from the 80s. The motor is just modest would be being kind to it. It's a 2-liter twin cam inline 4 with a 5-speed manual and fuel injection, but this car only makes 115 horsepower, which is barely enough power to close the garage door from which this car was pulled. These are not fast cars, but they're still fun to drive. You're definitely involved in the experience of rowing your own gears. These cars have a lot of body lean. When you go around the turn, it's like you're putting English on your shoulders, and you'll find yourself leaning into the turns, almost like you're on a motorcycle. And of course, this car turns heads everywhere you go. People are going to wave and scream at you and say nice things or scream obscenities at you for being in the way. Move out of the way of my Porsche, you idiot, that Italian panini maker. Anyway, JP, here's a nice car. I bet you would rock this thing. This car would look fantastic on the what do you call it, the strip in Vegas. I think this would be a fantastic car for you and Rochelle to go to dinner in, or maybe a car to Turo. I bet this car would be out every weekend. So I know you like these things. I'm not sure if you love these things. If you had to have one that wasn't really vintage, like say the late 60s, like a boat tail, I think this would be my favorite, maybe my second favorite generation of the Alfa Spider, something they made from like 66 to 94. That's a long run for a car that didn't really evolve, but this might be one of the prettiest ones. I love the treatment on it. What say you?
Yeah, the Alfa Spider has a spot in my heart. I love these cars. I had a beautiful 86 when I met my lovely wife, and we used to drive around that thing all the time. And it is everything that, I always talk about cabs, and I always make fun of cabriophobes, people that don't like convertibles. This is one of those few cars that they don't even make a hardtop version of this. They do make a hardtop that you can plop onto the car, but there's no coupe version of this car. And you're absolutely right about the poor handling. This is not a car that you rip around on the back roads expecting to tear it up. This is a car that you cruise around in, and you just look classy, and just, second gear on these always grinds just about every one of them. There's like the transmission mount goes bad, and it shifts everything, and it just makes it clunk. They're oddly heavy for the size of car that they are, but they just look so beautiful. And I like the 86 and newer generation. Oddly the older interior, with its 70s-ness and the gauges, everything. I don't know. It was never quite there. So this kind of slightly more modern interior actually seems to fit the car better. I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with me. I don't like the Quadrifoglio version of it. I would rather have a Graduate because you could get a Graduate with a black interior. All the Quadrifoglios came with this gray and red interior, which I don't understand. The silver one, the red one, they all had the same interior.
So true.
And I do like the body kit, the factory body kit that's on it. I think it gives it a kind of a cool look, but honestly, for my
at the
I'd rather
expense
have
of
just
that gray leather. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather just have a black interior. So yeah, and then the last year they made these, what was it, 93 or whatever? So the 91, 2, and 3s had the more modern kit. They kind of 964'd it a little bit, and so the interior is
That's right.
even more modern and everything. I think those are really terrific cars, but they still don't handle any better than the older ones. So why spend the extra money? Beautiful car. If you could get over that red interior, this car is another East Coast car. So this is a car that, unfortunately, when you look at a Porsche or something like that, and you look at an auction site, you go, you know what? I'm going to buy that 911. I don't care where it is. I don't care if it's in Maine and I live in San Diego. I'm going to buy the thing and I'm going to drive it all the way home and have a great adventure.
Yeah.
If you are in the Bay Area and you think you're going to fly out to Connecticut and drive this thing home,
Yeah. Wah, wah.
not going to happen. Not going to make it. I hate to say it. So you got to factor in shipping for this car, and half the people that want this thing are not in Connecticut. Probably 2/3 of the people that are going to be interested in this car are nowhere near where the car actually is. So shipping is going to have to be factored in. How many miles does this car have on it again?
Low miles, JP. 43,000 miles.
That is
into
low
no
miles.
reserve auction. Yeah.
All right. So where's it going to land?
So JP, with 4 hours to go out of Greenwich, Connecticut, our 89 Spider Quadrifoglio has got 11,500 miles on the till on 20 bids. So there's a little bit of love for this car. I still think this car is a looker, and it's low miles, and it might do well. The market's high on everything, so I'm kind of betting on the market and the platform. So I'm going for it. I'm going to say $21,000 gets it done. But you and I have seen that last generation you were just talking about, the 91 through 94. We've seen some really low mile examples of that car bring $40,000 and $50,000. So for that reason, I don't think 21 is out of the question here. I stand by my bid. Where are you at?
I'm with you. I'm going over that. I'm going to say 20.
Really?
I'll say 25. I mean, this
very
car
nice.
is low miles, and even though there's a ton of people on the east or on the west coast that want this car belongs in the Catskills. This car belongs in Connecticut. Yeah. Driving around those little towns on the coast. This is the perfect summer cruiser that you're going to look classy. This thing is infinitely cooler than anything Aston Martin makes right now. You can be gaudy as hell in a brand new Italian sports car, or you can be classy and cool in this. You probably won't actually be cool because the air conditionings on these suck, if it even has it, which I doubt it. All right, so let's move on. What else we got? Right. We got some really cool, some more cars. What do we got?
All right, check out this car. There's a Swede joke in here somewhere, but anyway, it's a 2001 Saab 9.3 Viggen convertible. Again, a no reserve auction on this one. JP, our car has 100,000 miles on it, and it's out of Wilmington, Delaware. Now, I know you have some sort of early adult life experience with I think a couple of different Saabs. I told you I dated a gal who had a 9.3 turbo, or Saab 900 turbo convertible, black tan, and we dated for 3 years, and I drove her car every time we went out. So I put thousands of miles on her car over that time. That being said, long after she and I had broken up, Saab came out with this sort of special hopped up version called the Viggen. Saab, born from jets. I imagine the Viggen was their fighting squadron, or it's a fighting jet that was it's somewhere in this company's heritage. This was sort of their hot rod version. So what we're talking about is the 2.3 liter inline four was good for a whopping, let me read it to you, 230 horsepower, but more importantly, JP, 260 pound-foot of torque. This was their fastest car to date when the car came out. And I thought with the 17-inch wheels, or those big wheels that are on there, and the body kit, and then the sort of pumped up turbo, that this was the one to get. And I still remember her car fondly with just 150 horsepower. So I thought this was like a sleeper performance car, and it's something I kind of pined for. Now, Saab's history hasn't gone very well. I don't even know if they still sell cars in the US, but we look back on this car and wonder if it's going to have its moment, and are at $5,900. I think this is a steal with just 100,000 miles on it. So what do you know, or what do you remember? Do you remember it as fondly as I do? This special edition of the 900 convertible, which grew into the 9.3, the Viggen, which was, came in like 3 colors, and it had that cool little badge on the side. I thought this thing was like, the M3 of Sweden. How far off am I?
Woo! That is, yeah.
A romantic take,
yeah,
right?
the
A very
romantic take, yeah.
yeah.
This is a General Motors car. This thing represents the battle between the Swedish and the Americans, the war, the war of 2003 of Sweden, and the Great Swedish-American War, where General Motors was shoving all their crappy platforms down the Swedes' throat, and they resisted at every turn. I was very excited when I saw this car because our friend Kai Roberts, the previous owner of the car behind me, owns one of these, and it is scheduled to go live on BAT very soon. I thought maybe this was it.
How many?
He acquired one with like 3,000 miles. Yeah,
Oh
3,000
my
miles, right? It is like probably the nicest one that exists. It'll be a good juxtaposition to compare that one to this one.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a front-wheel drive car. Despite its General Motors-ness, it is a pretty fun car to drive. It comes from an era where the mechanical tops, this is something that will break. I mean, don't do it on a hill. It like even says in the manual, don't deploy the top on a hill. The car has to be level. What the hell is that? Stupid stuff like that. It's because it was General Motors, man. I mean, these things they're not great. They're just not great. They stopped making Saabs in 2011, I think, maybe 12 at the very latest. Spiker bought them for a while, and then they got bought by that Indian company, and then that was it. They're kaput. So there is no Saab. Nobody, all the makers of parts are all aftermarket parts. So it's just. I mean, this is just a pain in the butt. With 100,000 miles, it's going to have problems. So you're going to have to get to know a Saab repair guy. This one has that dented rear fender there, the left side fender. I don't know what's going on. Is that rust? Is that paint that they painted over the dent? I don't know what's happening. I mean, it's a neat car. This is like a tour. To me, this is like a $5,000 car tops. So where do you think this car is going to land?
Oh, JP, I don't know, man. No reserve auction, so it's going to sell. It was on 9 bids last night, and it's up to, I think it's still there, right? It hasn't moved. It's on 14 bids, but not a lot more money. So
where's it at now, though?
It's at $5,900 on 14 bids. Again, it's because I'm betting with my heart, not my head. I'm going to say $7,500, but it's going to need a little help to get there.
Yeah, I'm going to say DOA. I don't think it gets another bid, which is
really
crazy rare.
So you're going to stay 5,900.
BAT. Yeah, I think it's where it's at. Not another bid.
I don't. Yeah, well, you may still win, but by accident. Like it might get to 63 or 6,500, and you'll just be closer. But I think it gets another bid on BAT. It's very rare that we see a DOA on BAT without like some strange story.
What's the delta between the current bid and its previous bid? Like, what was the last previous bid?
Last night it was at 5,200 on 9 bids, and as we're doing the show, it's at 5,900. So it got $700 on 5 more bids. So it's got some action this morning.
Yeah.
So if you want to change your bid, go ahead.
No, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I mean, I'll stand by my. Maybe it gets another bid or whatever, but yeah, I'll still go the low number.
Okay, if this car wasn't as rough, right? Say it had 60,000 miles and no weird dents and stuff. Remember that version of the car that was like the aerodynamic? Wasn't it like the SP something or other that was that aerodynamic 9.3? It had like the body kit, the lower body.
Yeah, I think they
kit.
called it the Aero. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you rather have a Viggen or an Aero? If money was the same.
The Viggen is the better version of
driver.
Yeah. But still, I'm just I mean, it's like, okay, you start getting into that above 10, now you're in 15 range. Like the one that Kai has. I don't know what the reserve on that is going to be, but I'm guessing he's going to want like $30,000 for that thing.
Yeah.
Because it's basically a brand new car, but it's just not a $30,000 driving experience, right? I mean, it's just like why would you spend more than $10,000 on this car? Yeah, it might have a little extra poop, but it's front wheel drive, and all the things that people complain about convertibles. And I always say, screw you, cabriophobes. But this car definitely, I mean, it is a open shoebox with no lid, man. This thing is flexy as hell. It does not handle great. It is
all of the structural integrity of the box of tissue that's on the back of your toilet right now. Like it flexes everywhere. And it's not that we hate front wheel drives, but this one has no limited slip differential. And so you got all this incredible torque steer. So you put it into a turn, you open the throttle, and then the steering wheel wants to snap straight forward. These are exciting, but not necessarily fun cars to drive on the day to day. If you take it out, like if it's your occasional car, it's just an okay, it's a fun car. You can enjoy it. It's great top down motoring, and all that torque is really wonderful to run around in. But on a day to day, you'll tire of this car.
Well, but I mean, compare it to the previous generation. Like take let's say a 1990 convertible, SPG turbo Saab 900. So that's basically the same, back when the Swedes were still making them. That's a super rigid car, even with the top down, even though it's front wheel drive, even though it doesn't have a limited slip and it has all kinds of torque steer. That thing is fun. I mean, I would pay 20 grand for one of those all day long. It has a sense of occasion. It looks amazing. That car was a car so we always talk about how General Motors took over Saab and how that screwed Saab, and that story is bandied about without qualifying it. The example is those two cars. Like if you compare the old version of the 900 and this car, the Saab 900 engine in the old one is tilted, it's low, and it's far back to the sidewall, right? Whereas in the new one, it's a General Motors product. They didn't care where the front engine was, right? So it's horizontal, or it's horizontal to the direction. It's not far back. It's actually kind of far forward. So it's not basically making a balanced car. It's just a piece of crap front wheel drive car platform that Saab was saddled with. So that's what I was getting at. I definitely get the old one and spend the money.
And JP, it's a very technical, but it's a really accurate take, right? So when Saab was in charge, engineering had to do with performance, and when General Motors it was like, what's the simplest way to package this thing and roll it into showroom floors? And what's amazing, when I saw this car come out and sort of being like a closet fanboy of this sort of platform that it evolved from, on paper I thought this car might do something. And then you read all the magazines, because that's what we did back in 2000, and it failed at every comparison test. None of the journalists liked it, and it was like, why not? Like, it's got all the cool body cladding, and it's got stiffer suspension, and it's got this hot rod motor, and it's just because some of the parts did not make a better product. And those old cars that you talk about when Saab was in charge were superior performing vehicles, and I think that's where the collector money will be, as we see sort of this Saab cult of followers pay big money. They'll pay big money for the good stuff, and it's nice to know that the Saab buyers and consumers and the clubs out there know the difference between the good stuff and the pretentious stuff, which is when GM was calling the shots. So JP, I think that's a great take, even if it's a little technical for the audience.
You are absolutely right. Not that you nailed it. General Motors sucks. Saab was awesome, and they tried to work it out, but that was those are two great tastes that don't taste great together.
That's exactly right. All right, JP, let's do a couple of Porsches and get that Swedish taste out of our mouth.
I like Swedish fish.
Lane was rocking. So do I. I married a Swede. Anyway, Lane was rocking his 944, which I, for the first time, got to see up close and personal. And he's done some really cool touches to him. But as we look back on 944s, they still represent a whopping value in the Porsche used car marketplace. 911s of almost every variety, even 912s, are starting to break the bank. JP, could you run out right now and buy a perfect 912? That would cost, you'd have to sell 2 cars to buy it. But a 944, a nice one, can still be had. And I thought you might love this one. Out of Maple Shade, New Jersey, is a 1985 Porsche 944 with a 5-speed manual with just 71,000 miles. And I thought this car was pretty clean for its age and for its vintage. Now, JP, help me along here. A 944 from 1985 is the second generation. This car has the interior update. It doesn't have the old dash, but the new dash. That being said, I can't remember seeing one of the newer cars with the sport cloth interior, at least not recently. So to me, this car looks, and again, this is my take, this is not accurate, it looks like a hodgepodge between the two, because it looks like, to me, it has sort of the older car's sport cloth interior, but the newer car's dashboard. The car looks great in guards red. I would venture a guess that 75% of all 944s are guards red. This older version is sitting on 15-inch or maybe 15-inch Fuchs wheels, which look great on this car. And again, this car being clean and unmodified, it gets my attention. And I thought you'd get a big kick out of this one because look at our car, JP. A super clean, sub 100,000 mile with no stories, no dents, no rust, no bad Carfax, no mods, no nothing. It doesn't look like somebody vaped in it, and it's under $10,000. It's in New Jersey, but it's at $9,400 with less than 3 hours to go. These are still a steal, and we know they handle really well. And believe it or not, JP, the window sticker is included in the price, or is included in the sale. This car was only $26,000 when it was brand new. Anyway, it still boggles the mind why these cars don't bring a little bit more money. Look, I'm not saying this is a $30,000 driving experience, but $9,000. I mean, what else would you rather have? I'd rather have this than my $9,000. So take it away, JP. Explain to me why Sport Cloth was still available up until like 1989, and I just am not connecting my own dots. What do you see here when you look at this car?
Yeah, this thing really is fantastic. Sport Cloth was absolutely available up in, I want to say into the S2s even. But it is, right. It really is
rare.
Great. Yeah, you don't see it very often. The dashboard only has the one little crack in it, which is so close to being a deal killer, but the crack is so far forward that you can't really see it when you're driving. So that's all that matters, right? You're right. This car, this one appears to be the one, right? Low enough miles that and it's just not beat to hell. It's on the East Coast, which is, we've been talking about that all day, how that's an issue. Do we know, again, bid nerds never do research. We don't know what we're talking about. Do we know if this car had the timing belt or any of that kind of stuff? The timing belt or water pump update?
Yeah, keep going and I'll
that's
look.
Those are the only two really Achilles heels on these cars. Yes, it has.
Service under the current ownership included the replacement of the water pump and timing belt and a fuel injection cleaning and a replacement of the engine mounts. Additional 2021 service details are provided on a $3,700 invoice. So it was all done this year at a cost of nearly $4,000. So this car's ready to rock. Save me 71,000 miles and $4,000 in all the stuff that needed to be done is done for you. This car, even if it comes in at my number, I still think is a steal.
Where did you say this is a 85 and a half, or is this an 86 car?
It's an 85, but it doesn't say half. It just says 85.
So and technically, this is an 85 and a half. The platform may not have a half. It may not be possible for BAT to list it as a half, but this is definitely an 85 and a half car because the earlier ones had the old style dash. So this was one of those weird situations where they had two different versions of the car during the same year. And obviously the 85 version has the old dash, the 85 and a half has the new dash. So that was when they introduced it, and it really was light years ahead of the old one. And I used to just love the new ones and hate the old ones, but now I'm kind of nostalgic for the older one, the Jake from 16 Candles car. This dash it's lower when you sit behind the wheel. The old dash was really, really high. This car just has that kind of combination of modern and classic, and it's water pumper. The AC will work. These are crazy reliable. This is the car that you can bid on if you're on the West Coast and want to drive it home from the East Coast. So where's this one going to land, man?
So JP, with 2 hours and 40 minutes to go, out of Maple Shade, New Jersey, is our 1985 Porsche 944 with just 71,000 miles and all the service work up to date. Car sitting at $9,400, and there it looks like they're fighting over it. There's action on the car this morning, and it's up to 17 bids. That being said, with the service, the condition, and the low miles, I think this is a $20,000 car, but I'm going to say $14,000 will bring this one home. Do you have any reason to suspect that this car will bring 15 or more? We just haven't seen 8944 get what we think it deserves. So this is the market for this car, which, although it doesn't make sense to me, I think it makes sense for this car. So I'm going to stand by my last night bid of $14,000 and send it to you. You gonna come in?
That's a good
over
bid.
me?
We talked about this on the DWA podcast. You can listen to it on the DWA website. They've got all the different links to where you can listen to their most recent podcast that came out on Thursday. And 944s were part of the conversation, and it really is. Still, even if this car does get up to 20, I still think that's the best value in sports cars right now. I mean, why the hell isn't this a $20,000 plus car?
Right.
Is beyond me. And yeah, I am going to bet the over because I'm thinking maybe this is finally the moment. Maybe people were listening to the DWA podcast and said, I need to go get a 944 and be like Lane.
It might be one of the cleanest ones we've seen, but we have also seen S's that haven't really brought the money. Like we saw an S that barely brought 20 grand, and then an Alfa GTV6 brought 38. Like I can't explain it. This is a superior car in every way.
This car is very clean, but it is not like super clean. It does have door dings. It does have a crack in the dash. It does have a few little blemishes here and there. So, but you said what number?
I said 14.
Yeah. I'm just going to go barely over and say it's going to creep up there. Maybe it gets to 16. I'll go 16. I'll just say what I think it's going to get to. I won't try to play to win here. The smart money would be to say, $500 above your bid, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed for the little 944, 1985 and a half. Because that's such a great year. All right, good luck to both of us. All right, what else we got?
Here we go. I want to ask you. I'm gonna test your Porsche knowledge and ask you, as we look at our 1988 Porsche 911 Carrera Cabriolet G50. Are you familiar with the paint code Diamond Blue Metallic? Take a look at this. I mean, that is a really unusual paint job. To be perfectly honest, I'm not really familiar with this color at all. It looks kind of like light periwinkle metallic to me. I love it. I don't know that I really want to own it, and I don't mind like silver rose or like a champagne color, but this to me looks very feminine. And then to boot, this car is paired with a full burgundy partial leather interior upholstery. It's very cool looking, and I wouldn't be surprised if somebody pays a premium for the unusual paint code and the unusual colorway of this car. I just don't know if this is the one I'd want. And I don't mind unusual colors, but even this one, I'm like, it's pretty feminine, dude. Like, it's kind of hilarious. Our car is out of West Laco, Texas, has 93,000 miles, and it's worth noting that because it's a 1988, this Cabriolet has a 3.2 and a G50 5-speed transmission. The car looks to be in very nice condition overall. And it was even treated to a Steve Wong chip, and the final muffler has been replaced by a Fab Speed Sport muffler. So I imagine this car probably has a few extra horsepower, and it probably sounds really good. I can't explain this to you, JP, but I am not a fan of the aftermarket 17-inch Fuchs wheels. I think this car would look better to the eye if it were on the standard 16s. That being said, I don't mind if 17s go on the car, but if you're going with the original look, I just somehow 17-inch Fuchs wheels. The Fuchs wheels are such an important part of the Porsche silhouette for the G bodies that when they're the wrong size, it throws my eyes off, and I don't appreciate them. So somehow these don't work for me. I would actually go out of my way to put 16s back on this car. But otherwise, there's a lot to like here. The car looks to be in decent condition. It's got a cool little shift handle. I don't like the aftermarket head unit, but it's all there, and it looks nice. Somebody did cryogenically clean the bottom of the car. There's no cosmoline on the bottom of the car. So that's interesting. There is a COA that's worth mentioning. Pretty neat to see the paint code F5 for the Diamond Blue Metallic. And all the original parts are included in the sale. So this looks like a nice lot. It looks like a decent value. It's a Cabriolet, so it's not going to bring the money it should. But what do you think of the paint color, and what do you think of this car in general? It's a nice car. Yeah.
I think it's a great car. I mean, the color is a little weird. I thought it was one of the cassis or, the diamond, the rose thing or whatever. Obviously, that's not the case. And looking at it, the more you look at it, you're like, wow, that really is an odd color. I don't know if I've ever noticed one before. Have I ever seen one? Probably. But
Probably,
I
yeah,
did.
me
It just
too.
my brain just thought it was a Cassis and just moved on.
Had you heard of diamond blue metallic before
I
this
have
car?
not. I have
Oh,
not.
cool.
So
All right.
yeah.
So
So
I'm not
that's
the
kind of
only one.
an.
I was embarrassed to admit I sold the things. I'm like, diamond blue. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I've
And then the COA is there to back it up. So, all right, cool. So I'm not the only one. This is a really rare color. The binders don't even know it, you know?
If you would have
Jesus.
said diamond blue, this is not the color that I would have had in my brain. I would have thought
Yeah.
something
Okay. Fair
completely
enough.
different.
Yeah. Cool.
I have to disagree with you on the wheels. I love the 17-inch Fuchs.
Really?
Yeah,
And
I
didn't
just
Alcantara do
absolutely
that?
love
Isn't
it.
Alcantara's SC have 17s?
Yeah, and you know what? On the SC, I don't know. I think on the SC, I don't know if it really looks that good, but this car is lowered. I don't know what springs it has on it. It's definitely lower than ROW. So with the wheels and I think it looks so hot, especially with like the top up on this car. It just looks mean, and I think it looks a little different than most of them, which kind of makes you go, "Oh wait, is there something different about a G body with the G50 transmission?" I mean, I don't know. I'm in love with this thing. It is
I
not.
think-
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think he cranked it down on his torsion bars, JP, and just spent the money to have somebody lower that rear. The
Yeah.
front's really easy; you could do it yourself, but you got to, it's involved to do the rear. Clearly, he did it on the rear, and then kudos to our consignor for shooting the car both with the top up and the top down. Worth mentioning, since we've seen so many Jeeps with their hard tops stuck on or convertibles where they didn't take the top down. I think this guy did a fair job of presenting his car to market because we get to see it both ways. As you're talking about it, it does look great with the top up, and it's because the photos are there.
Yeah, but like you're right that convertibles don't bring the same money that coupes. We've seen it time and time again. So it'll be interesting to see what this will definitely bring a premium for a cab. And there's the $50,000 question: how much will this thing bring today on Bring a Trailer? How many miles does this car have on it again?
Let me read to you. I think
Oh, looks like we lost Michael D. I think his feed just clipped out here.
I'm there.
Oh, he's back.
Can you
He's
still hear me?
back.
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right. So JP, our 1988 Porsche 911 Carrera Cabriolet G50 has 93,000 miles out of Westlaco, Texas. So G50 gearbox, really neat features. All the stock parts are included in the sale, and it does have the COA. Really nice car. No mention of a top end rebuild. And if the car's been cared for at 93,000 miles, JP, it shouldn't need it yet. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah. Yeah, top end is gonna be due sometime between now and the next 50,000 miles. It's coming.
Okay.
It's pretty tough
Yeah.
to get around that.
Yeah. Then the guy did convert to the AC down in Texas. He converted to R134A. So that probably helps if you live in some of the hotter climates. If you're in Florida, Arizona, Vegas, or Southern California, you might appreciate that. I think what's going on here is you've got nice condition and a really unusual build with the colorway being a full burgundy interior and this blue diamond. And so I do think somebody's going to pay a premium for it. Our car, JP, with an hour to go is at $41,911 on a whopping 17 bids. Last night I put $52,000, but I think after looking at the car, I'm just going to go a little higher. I'm going to add $5,000 to my bid and say $57,000 as I send it to you. Because I think he did a decent job bringing it to market, and it's rare enough. The G50, JP, look, I wouldn't choose this car. I still think the periwinkle metallic is feminine. But man, some black stickers, I think I can make this car look cool. So I probably would drive it. I think driving this convertible with the G50, you're going to be in hog heaven. That's a great car. So go for it. What do you say?
This poor guy driving it, doing all the wrong things, leaving his hand on the shift lever, driving down a residential road, doing nothing interesting but going in a straight line. All right, we'll let it go because it's a cab. He's not going nuts. He's just like putzing along. But come on, man, put your hand back on the steering wheel. What are you doing? One of my rules for owning cars is that if the bad guy in the movie wouldn't own it, I won't own it. And so that's kind of why I am down on all these goofy colors that seem so popular in Porsche world. Porsche guys love bright green and blue and all, like Miami blue and all this silly stuff. And yeah, it looks neat, but it's not cool. It's like bright and whiz bang. And the bad guy, the sinister villain in the movie is going to drive a black car or a silver car. That's what he's going to drive. And that's why I like those colors, because I'm a bad guy. So yeah, but most people aren't like me. Most people want these goofy colors. I actually like the all burgundy interior. I don't like burgundy color on cars in general, like the exterior, but the interior, I actually dig it. Especially, I think it's pairing really well with this diamond blue metallic, whatever pinky color thing it is. And get a pink polo shirt and pop the collar and and go with it.
Right. Who was the guy from 16 Candles?
Jake from 16 Candles would not drive this car.
You don't think so?
Nah, he's got the guards red on black, man. Automatic 944. What was your number? Your number was 57. I had my number at 55, and it was interesting because you said 52, and then you went over. So I'm going to say 55 and say it's anybody's guess. We have not seen a cab go over 60, and this one has too high miles, I think, to do that. If this thing had 50,000 miles, I think we would see our first, 50,000 or fewer miles. I think we would see our first cab break that 60 range. But I don't think this one's going to be it.
Okay.
There it is. Is that all the cars? Did we get through them all? Do we have any more?
No.
I think that was the most interesting cars of the day on all the automotive enthusiast auction sites, which is what we do on this page.
It actually was, because we covered them. So that's a fact.
All right. Well, make sure you go on to those, go to BAT, go to PCAR, and say you saw those cars on Bid Nerds. That really helps us out a lot. Make sure you hit the subscribe, like, and notification button. And we've got a whole new batch of cars coming to you for tomorrow at the 9 o'clock hour. That's Pacific time. So join us, Michael Deeb. Anything else you want to say before we dip on out of here?
No.